I'm Andrew Auerbach of the OECD Center for Tax Policy and Administration Secretariat. This video explains the recent initiatives that the Inclusive Framework on Base Erosion and Profit Shifting has taken to reduce the burdens for its members undergoing peer reviews. This presentation explains the contents of the 2025 Inclusive Framework Report, recognizing progress and reducing burdens in the BEPS Minimum Standards. This presentation will provide some background on the OECD Base Erosion and Profit Shifting Project, what the Inclusive Framework on BEPS aims to achieve, and finally, the progress and burden reduction relative to the BEPS minimum standards. The BEPS project centers on 15 BEPS actions, equipping governments with rules and instruments to help ensure that profits are taxed where economic activities generating them take place and where value is created. Today, more than 145 jurisdictions are members of the Inclusive Framework on BEPS. A key function of the Inclusive Framework is to monitor progress and review the implementation of those 15 BEPS actions. In particular, the Inclusive Framework conducts peer reviews of 4 BEPS minimum standards. These minimum standards are Action 5 on harmful tax practices, Action 6 on tax treaty abuse, Action 13 on country-by-country reporting, and Action 14 on dispute resolution. All Inclusive Framework members commit to implementing the 4 minimum standards, acknowledging their interdependence in addressing BEPS risks and the negative spillovers that can arise from non-implementation. Implementation of the 4 BEPS minimum standards has reached a mature stage, reflecting a strong commitment to address BEPS risks across the membership of the Inclusive Framework. As a result, attention is turned to reducing the burdens associated with the peer review processes, strengthening the overall value proposition of the minimum standards. The Inclusive Framework, at its April 2025 plenary meeting in Cape Town, South Africa, adopted a series of recommendations to streamline the peer review processes for the BEPS minimum standards. The next slides will explain these each in turn. The BEPS Action 5 minimum standard has 3 parts. The first focuses on preferential tax regimes. The second is about substance and transparency requirements that apply to no or only nominal corporate tax jurisdictions. And the third concerns the transparency framework for the spontaneous exchange of information on certain tax rulings. Since the inception of the BEPS project, the Forum on Harmful Tax Practices, the FHTP, has made very good progress in its reviews of all 3 areas. It has reviewed 332 preferential regimes for compliance with Action 5, reviewed all the no or only nominal tax jurisdictions, which have all enacted legislation to meet the substantial activities requirements, and 104 jurisdictions have fully implemented the transparency standard. In light of the maturity of the BEPS Action 5 implementation, the Inclusive Framework has agreed to introduce 2 new rules to reduce the burden and frequency of peer review processes while preserving the advancements made in countering harmful tax competition. First, the FHTP will now conduct an upfront economic impact assessment on the expected BEPS risks of a potentially preferential regime prior to the legislative review. Previously, countries may have been required to change their laws for regimes that ultimately were found not to pose any actual BEPS risks. This way, the economic assessment is done first, and if it reveals that the regime is not harmful, then no legislative review is required. This procedural change streamlines the FHTP's work and enhances its focus on regimes that are significant for maintaining the integrity of the BEPS Action 5 minimum standard and ensuring a level playing field without requiring jurisdictions to make legislative changes where such changes are not necessary to address BEPS risks. Second, The inclusive framework agreed on a reduced frequency of the FHTP's monitoring work streams. The monitoring exercises for substantial activities in non-IP regimes and no or only nominal tax jurisdictions, as well as the peer review of the transparency framework, will now take place once every 3 years instead of annually. Both of these new rules will reduce the burden for inclusive framework members. The Action 6 minimum standard on treaty shopping requires inclusive framework members to include in their tax treaties the following two components. First, express language stating the common intention of the parties to eliminate double taxation without creating opportunities for double non-taxation or reduced taxation through tax evasion or avoidance, including through treaty shopping arrangements, along with anti-abuse provisions that will implement this common intention, with a choice from among three alternative methods to implement this second component. Jurisdictions are required to satisfy these requirements if requested to do so by another member of the inclusive framework. Since its launch in 2018, the BEPS Action 6 peer review process has revealed significant and steady progress. Today, more than 90% of the agreements concluded between inclusive framework members are either compliant with the minimum standard or are on track to becoming compliant. This increase is due mostly to the entry into effect of the provisions of the BEPS multilateral instrument, which covers 105 jurisdictions and around 2,000 bilateral tax treaties in total. As the implementation has reached a mature stage, the focus of BEPS Action 6 has shifted toward providing targeted technical assistance to support the implementation of the minimum standard. This targeted assistance is available on an ongoing basis to all IF members that request it. It is also provided in particular to jurisdictions that have non-compliant agreements with other IF members, which may pose treaty shopping risks, and that have not yet taken steps to implement the minimum standard in those agreements. In parallel, targeted assistance is offered to encourage jurisdictions using the BEPS MLI to complete the necessary steps to bring its provisions into effect. Following a comprehensive peer review process in 2023, the frequency of the peer reviews is now reduced to once every 5 years, with the next review scheduled for 2028, thereby easing the associated administrative burdens. Given the advanced state of implementation, the work on BEPS Action 6 now focuses on providing the targeted technical assistance. Inclusive framework members can request bespoke technical assistance at any time, namely in relation to the signature or ratification of the BEPS MLI, as well as for questions on interpretation, implementation, or practical challenges encountered in the implementation of the minimum standard. The minimum standard on country-by-country reporting requires multinational enterprise groups with consolidated group revenue exceeding 750 million euros to file an annual CBC report with the tax administration of the jurisdiction where the M&E group is headquartered. This report is automatically exchanged under existing international agreements with those jurisdictions where the M&E group has resident entities or permanent establishments, provided they have implemented the necessary framework for CBC reporting. CBC reporting offers tax administrations unprecedented insights into the global activities of M&E groups operating within their jurisdiction, providing key information such as profit before tax, income tax paid and accrued, and the number of employees. Since the launch of the peer review process in 2017, implementation of the BEPS Action 13 minimum standard has reached a mature stage, with most inclusive framework members successfully ensuring that CBC reports are filed and exchanged in line with the minimum standard. Reflecting this maturity, the methodology was revised in 2020 to reduce the burden on jurisdictions with stable frameworks by introducing a simplified peer review. Given the fact that the review process was already simplified in 2020, The inclusive framework agreed at its plenary meeting in April 2025 that no further procedural changes are required at this time. However, the inclusive framework agreed that the focus should be on ensuring that all inclusive framework members, in particular developing countries, can access and use CBC reports effectively. While many developing countries have introduced domestic legislation requiring the filing of CBC reports, and others have draft legislation in progress, fewer have completed the technical steps needed to receive reports under the Automatic Exchange of Information framework. To close this gap, a targeted approach has now been deployed, empowering developing country members to set their own implementation timelines for accessing CBC reports and to receive tailored support from the Secretariat. Close engagement with developing countries has further highlighted that access to suitable IT tools remains a barrier to receiving and using CBC reports. While larger jurisdictions have developed or purchased advanced systems, these are often too costly or complex for developing countries with limited reporting volumes. To address this, the inclusive framework is exploring options to make available low or no cost IT solutions tailored to the needs of developing countries. These tools, combined with access to the OECD Common Transmission System, are expected to significantly facilitate access to CBC reports by all interested developing countries. The Action 14 Minimum Standard on Mutual Agreement Procedure, or MAP, aims to improve tax treaty dispute resolution through three core principles: timely and good faith implementation of MAP obligations, effective administrative processes, and guaranteed access to MAP for eligible taxpayers. To date, 128 jurisdictions in the inclusive framework have completed peer review processes. The peer reviews show tangible results in enhancing the efficiency, effectiveness, and timeliness of MAP across inclusive framework jurisdictions. Over 500 treaties have been modified by the BEPS MLI to incorporate effective MAP provisions. Access to MAP is available in most eligible cases, with the remaining issues being effectively addressed through recommendations in the peer review process. There is also widespread publication of MAP guidance and MAP profiles by most peer-reviewed jurisdictions, as well as improvements in the organization of competent authority functions. These advancements have enabled many jurisdictions to get much closer to the target of resolving MAP cases within an average time frame of 24 months. Jurisdictions also report statistics related to their tax certainty obligations under BEPS Action 14. The ongoing collection of information ensures transparency, with information about each jurisdiction's MAP function available through published MAP guidance or MAP profiles. Developing countries that had little or no MAP experience were able to defer their peer review, and many did so. Now that the first reviews for other inclusive framework members have been completed, a continued monitoring process has been put in place in 2023. This process does not provide for any further deferral of peer reviews for developing countries, but a simplified peer review process for jurisdictions with limited or no MAP experience is provided for. 68 inclusive framework jurisdictions with limited or no MAP experience have undergone or are currently undergoing a simplified peer review process, with reports for 60 jurisdictions already published. 8 are undergoing review, and another 17 will be reviewed soon. Given the recent updates to the peer review methodology for Action 14 agreed in 2023, the inclusive framework agreed that no further changes are required at this time. The simplified review process for developing countries is helping them build a strong foundation for future cases, alongside a full review for jurisdictions with more established MAP practices. Early results show strong commitment, particularly from lower capacity jurisdictions, which have welcomed the simplified process as a valuable tool for developing their MAP frameworks and allocating necessary resources. These efforts are further reinforced by targeted capacity building initiatives, such as MAP workshops for developing country officials, offering practical training on dispute resolution under BEPS Action 14. To summarize, for BEPS Action 5, the review process now takes a more pragmatic approach to avoid unnecessary burdens, and the monitoring process is less frequent. For BEPS Action 6, the peer reviews have been reduced to once every 5 years instead of annually, with an increased focus on capacity building. For BEPS Action 13, the annual peer review has been simplified. Developing countries are able to choose their implementation timetable in accordance with their own priorities, and the Secretariat is developing low-cost IT solutions. For BEPS Action 14, the peer review has been simplified for developing countries with targeted capacity building available as needed. Thank you, and please reach out to us at ctp.beps@oecd.org if you have any questions on this material.